If he did, why would you continue to work?
The United States launching new airstrikes against pro-Assad forces in the country of Syria.
U.S. forces reached out via a Russian deconfliction channel and urged them to get back. They did not listen, and so a U.S. strike took out the weapons.
Amazon Prime came out and said they're going to offer a discount to people that are on food stamps.
Amazon is online, so how do they go online? They must have a computer and or a way to go online, so why are they on food stamps?
NSA worker charged with leaking top government secrets this morning. Winter's parents now speaking out.
I want her to be treated fair. I want her to be safe.
If she did this, as the allegations say, and she's convicted, she should go to jail.
George and Amal Clooney welcoming twins, Ella and Alexander. They jokingly add that George is sedated and should recover in a few days. Yeah. George Clooney did say, he said, all my friends have kids going to college, and they're all laughing at me now.
Absolutely, yeah. Seventh and 6th Avenue, because we actually stretch between 2 blocks now here in our gigantic studio.
Right. Google us and try to find us. So we'll put a pin down if you want to track us somewhere.
I think it's pretty easy to find us. Just go out on that street and look this way. Here we are.
Yeah.
All right.
And just yell.
Just look for all the American flags outside, and that's where we are, right here on Avenue of the Americas. In the meantime, we're going to hand it over to Jillian, who has some important headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. We begin with a Fox News alert. Brand new video of the terror in the heart of Paris. A man bashing a police officer in the head with a hammer outside the famed Notre Dame Cathedral, knocking the officer to the ground as he scrambles to draw his gun. The frantic scene sent tourists running for their lives. The suspect claiming to be an ISIS soldier shouting, quote, "This is for Syria," before a police officer shot him in the chest. Officials say he's a student working on his doctoral thesis who had not been on their radar. He's now recovering in the hospital. Hundreds of tourists locked down inside the church. You can see right there, police telling them to put their hands in the air as they searched everyone inside one by one. A priest trying to calm the group with prayer. Also breaking right now, at least 12 people are dead and nearly 36 injured after a pair of deadly ISIS attacks on Iran's parliament and an iconic shrine. The siege ending just moments ago. Several gunmen storming into the legislature, sending lawmakers into lockdown. These are the first ever ISIS attacks in Iran. Another alert moments ago, British police finding the body of an 8th victim in the London terror attack. He is a 45-year-old Frenchman, Xavier Thomas. The body pulled from the Thames River. We're also learning more about the 3 terrorists. One of them, Karim Butt, on the left you can see right there, had connections to the 2005 London bus bombers. Also new this morning in Syria, the U.S. now launching an airstrike against pro-Assad forces near a coalition training camp. Hawaii is now the first state to adopt a law that aligns with the Paris Climate Accord. The move comes less than a week after President Trump pulled out of the deal, claiming it imposed unfair environmental standards on the U.S. Democratic Governor David Ige met with applause after signing the new rules that seek to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve soil health, and diminish climate change. So a lot happening, a lot breaking this morning, guys. That is a look at your headlines, and we'll keep you updated.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's incredible. By the way, this is Ramadan. There's been an attack a day from Australia to Paris to London. This has been incredible.
It has been terrible. Meanwhile, tomorrow, James Comey is going to sit down in front of the cameras and tell what he knows about the president and Russia. And we've already learned from some of those anonymous sources that apparently Mr. Comey is going to say that the president did not obstruct justice when he had a conversation or two with Mr. Comey. However, he is going to dispute the president saying to Mr. Comey in his "you're fired" letter that you essentially said he was not under investigation. Apparently, according to some other news sources this morning, apparently Mr. Comey is going to say he had a much more nuanced conversation with Mr. Trump, from which he concluded he was not under investigation. So it's Mr. Comey's interpretation versus the president's interpretation.
Some are saying if there was obstruction of justice, why did he continue to work for the president? But others are saying,
We never know what James Comey's going to say, so no telling. That's why it's going to be interesting tomorrow morning, because 1 minute he's for Hillary, 1 minute he's not. We thought when he had the press conference last summer he was going to indict her. At the very end of that press conference, after all the reasons of why she did illegal things, he says she's not indicted. So you never know.
With James Comey, there's probably not mystery to anything because he took so many meticulous notes. And we're going to find out about that conversation that did happen with Loretta Lynch that got him to the point where he felt as though he had to call that press conference to say what he knew, but yet to say he's not going forward with the investigation, let alone what he did in late October. I'd like to add this. Evidently, the Attorney General Sessions did say that James Comey came up to him and said, I'm not comfortable being alone with the president. And Sessions came back reportedly and said, there's nothing I can do about that. If he's going to ask to see you one-on-one, and there is some reports that, and they're going to follow up on this today because Dan Coates, the National Intelligence Director, is going to be asked this directly. Did the president ask you to get involved and tell James Comey to back off? Essentially, he said he did ask Pompeo and Coates, he's head of the CIA, to sit back, lay back, I need to speak to you, at which time he expressed his frustration with this Russian investigation because fundamentally the president thinks nothing happened. Why are we doing this? You're wasting your time.
If those stories are true, I mean, there are a whole bunch of anonymous sources telling different newspapers different things about what the president supposedly did or didn't do. We actually have the president on tape.
Well, Steve, can I just follow up just while everyone's thinking about it?
Sure.
This is what Director Coates, his spokesperson, said to this story. He has never felt pressured by the president or anyone else in the administration to influence any intelligence matters or ongoing investigation.
See, that refutes the story.
The president, he did not stop the investigation or what James Comey's going to do tomorrow, and he doesn't seem to be worried about what he's going to say tomorrow, because listen to this.
What message do you have to Jim Comey ahead of his testimony?
I wish him luck. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so the big question is, good luck. Will the president be watching tomorrow? Sean Spicer said yesterday that the president's got a very busy schedule. However, there's a possibility, and this story is out there, he could be live tweeting. When Comey says one thing, he might actually have his smartphone and be live tweeting a response in real time. So
although
stay tuned for that.
He's been remarkably disciplined when it comes to tweets over the last couple of weeks in Russia. He's been laying out on that topic because he's been urged by his legal counsel not to do it. We did ask you that question, and there's no bad answer. We just want your answer. Do you want the president live tweeting? Do you think that that would be help or hurt? Do you think that helps you? Do you think it helps him? So weigh in.
All right. What does Mike Huckabee make of all of this? Listen to this.
Every consumer has to become his or her own editor anymore, because in the old days, somebody would sit at the editorial desk and they would determine which stories are the most important. And importance was based largely on which had the greatest impact on people's lives, which ones were legitimately important. Now it's which ones will make the president look bad. So they ignore his infrastructure proposal. They ignore his trip to the Middle East. They ignore efforts to change the tax code and the tax rate and to grow the economy and the fact that the stock market is responding. And so they focus on what James Comey is going to say on Thursday. And did the Russians somehow mess with the elections? And poor Hillary, she was cheated out of the election because she was really the popular vote winner. Sean, this is why I say it's not careless journalism. It's corrupt journalism, and that's intentional on their part.
All right, so we asked you what you thought about what's going to happen tomorrow, whether you're going to watch. Ed on Twitter says, I want Comey to tell America his true thoughts on the honesty of the U.S. government, both sides.
Richard says, I want to know where all of Comey's notes are stored. Has all of his work product been turned over to the federal government? That's what you were talking about, Brian.
Yeah, and Robbie says, why was Hillary Clinton and her team allowed to destroy iPhones, iPads, laptops that contain sensitive information? Why didn't he personally do the interview? Why did she come in on a Saturday? This is me. Why did she come in on a Saturday to interview real quickly with a huge attitude, with a terrible attitude towards interrogators? I think it was the day after 4th of July.
That's right.
So a lot of people say that's July 5th.
You will see Mr. Comey live on Fox News Channel tomorrow. Meanwhile, let's talk about from that reality show to reality winner. She, the 25-year-old Augusta, Georgia NSA contractor who leaked top secret information to The Intercept, where they published it. It's interesting, you know, she's been arrested. She faces, what, 10 years at least in prison. Her parents down in Augusta, Georgia, talked to DailyMail.com, said, you know, our daughter, she's had a good record, she was in the military, but suggested she's being used for... Their daughter is being used for political purposes, which is curious given the fact that when you look at her social media profile and everything she has posted, she is very political. She does not like this president, and in fact, on election night, she made it very clear.
This was her tweet on election night. Well, I don't even want to say this word because I was taught not to say it.
Well, people can read it. Hashtag election night.
Yeah, it says, well, people suck. Hashtag election night. Sarah Winters writes, Donald Trump, the most dangerous entry to the country, was the orange fascist we let into the White House.
Sarah Winters is reality winner.
I guess, did she change her name or her friends know her as Sarah?
Well,
that is believed to be her Twitter account.
Right. But here's the most important thing. She had all this out there. Most of this stuff was out there in February when she got hired. Nobody, something about the NSA hiring procedures to give us a job that I feel is so important, and I think you should feel too, because she had such high clearance. You can't have an agenda to this degree and win the battle to get a job. I appreciate her service, and she's obviously very bright, knows a lot of languages, but so what? Well, if you're Barack Obama, you don't want to hire somebody that has if President Obama's president, and you have to hire people, you don't hire somebody that says, I hate Barack Obama. I love George Bush. You go, listen, I don't need that, someone who's that dug in party politics.
And when I heard the story originally yesterday, I was like, she's 25 years old. Maybe she didn't know better. No, maybe she didn't know. And then I read, no, she did. She took this information, she folded it up, she put it in an envelope. It was intentional. She does speak a lot of Middle Eastern languages, so that means she's very smart.
Yep, sure.
And that means she knew what she was doing.
Very smart, but very dumb. Here's the thing about top secret clearance, which she brought from her Air Force job, and that is, in some cases, it is portable. You can take it with you to the next job.
Air Force job. She serves under the Commander-in-Chief.
Oh, I completely understand. What I'm trying to explain is, so the clearance goes into her next job at Pluribus. Pluribus hired her in February with 2 or 3 months worth of stuff where she's talking this way about the Commander-in-Chief, which if I'm the NSA contractor, Pluribus, I'm thinking, could she potentially be a risk of leaking some stuff out?
And
losing that. As it turns out, the answer is yes.
And losing that government contract. And how many more are like that out there? 1.3 million in the country have that clearance. Next on our rundown, this week the VA secretary rolled out a new plan to help our veterans, and he says he's not done yet. What's next? Stick around. The VA Secretary, Dr. David Shulkin, is here live.
And we showed you this video yesterday, one man's incredible water slide trick. We wondered if it was the real deal, and now we know. Stay tuned.
It's like a superhero.
Stay dry.
In recent years, it has taken not just days or weeks, but many months for the records to follow the veteran. We are finally taking steps to solve this situation once and for all.
President Trump praising the VA's plan to modernize medical records. He said that on Monday of this week. That move just announced by VA Secretary Dr. David Shulkin. Secretary Shulkin joins us right now, and of course he had to answer the press's questions earlier in the week. Dr. Shulkin, you're not stopping there, but you are saying that there's going to be a change. When you leave the Defense Department, when you stop fighting for the country, there's going to be no gap from when you go to the VA system, correct?
That's correct, Brian. It just makes sense. Once you enter the military, till the time all the way up to your death, you're going to be followed by one system, and there's not going to be any gaps in care.
And that's been a huge problem. It leads to the wait times. Hey, I just been out for a month. I need this care. I'm out. Let me get your paperwork in. Now it's all going to be electronic and quick, and it's already started. But you didn't stop there. What passed through the Senate yesterday?
Well, yesterday, fortunately, the Senate passed the accountability bill, and now we're going to see that return to the House. I expect the House will quickly pass that again. They had passed it once before, and we'll get it on to the President so he can sign that and we can start making some changes.
The President noticed. He tweeted this out. It said, the Senate passed the VA Accountability Act. The House should get this bill to my desk as soon as possible. We cannot tolerate substandard care for our vets. So what changes? I understand one of the key changes is it's going to allow you to hire and fire. There's people that got to go that you can't get rid of. After this, you can.
Yes, this bill is very important. It will allow me to make sure that we have the right people leading the VA. That means that the people that have lost their values are going to need to leave, and we're going to be able to get people in faster to make sure that we're fixing this system.
It's a union. Will unions push back on this?
Well, I think the union always has concerns, but we are committed to due process for people. But the union understands that the VA needs to change, that this has been long overdue, and I think that they're going to understand and work to make sure that we are able to do what we need to do to get this system fixed.
Dr. Shulkin, you were asked something in the press conference, but I don't know by whom. They said, you know, you've been with the VA before. Why is all this stuff being done now? What's the different tone in this administration as to the previous administration?
Well, I think this is really the president's leadership saying that when it comes to doing the right thing for our veterans, this is a top priority, and we have to treat this as different than usual. These are years and years, maybe decades of issues that haven't been dealt with, and we're going to treat this like a business, and we're going to get the job done, and I'm glad to be able to do that.
And you could be the guy that brings health care to the vets in a timely, fast-paced, first-class manner, and that'll be something everyone will never forget. Dr. David Shulkin, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And, of course, under the president's leadership. All right, coming up straight ahead. After a sniper murdered five of his officers, the Dallas police chiefs delivered an unforgettable message to the country.
All I know is that this must stop, this divisiveness.
Cops are still under siege today, so what can we do? That man, Chief David Brown, here next, got a brand new book out. And how is President Trump going to pay for his wall? How about we use federal dollars going to sanctuary cities? We'll take a closer look at that. What about building it out of solar panels? We'll look at that.
All right, it is 7:24 in the morning. Some quick headlines right now from New York City. A woman now facing attempted murder charges for giving a 2-year-old meth at a California playground. Police say the woman approached the boy and put something in his mouth. She later told the cops it was meth. The boy's going to be okay. Tom is now undergoing a psych evaluation. Mysterious little yellow pills sold on the streets blamed for an outbreak of deadly overdoses in Georgia. Up to 4 people have been killed and dozens more hospitalized over the span of just 2 days. Some patients thought they were taking prescription painkiller Percocet. It wasn't. Ainsley.
All right, thank you, Steve. Well, last summer, a sniper opened fire on police in Dallas, leaving 5 officers dead. And at the center of the tragedy, Dallas police officer Chief David Brown. His tactics brought that siege to a quick end, and his leadership brought the community together. His law enforcement career spanned more than 30 years, but his call to serve started when he was a young boy. His story being told in his new memoir. It is called to Rise. He had a calling and he followed it. Joining me now is retired Dallas Police Chief David Brown. Chief, thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.
And thank you for serving our community. We love our police officers and our men and women in blue. How did you get from, your mom was raising you.
Yes.
She raised a little bit of money to send you to parochial school.
Yes. Got me a really good early childhood education in parochial school, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. Then I went to public school, but I was well advanced, so I was in advanced placement throughout and got a full academic ride to the University of Texas at Austin, Hook'em Horns. And my senior year, the crack cocaine epidemic hit all the inner cities, and particularly where I grew up. All the kids were experimenting with crack cocaine and became increasingly violent. So I quit school my senior year at the disappointment of my parents and put an application in to the police department, and my old neighborhood was my first beat.
Wow.
And I moved up the organization and became chief of police.
Your experience changed your thoughts on race. In what way?
In '71, I was bused in desegregation. And it was an awful experience for 11-year-olds trying to figure out what all this race stuff was about that adults were in conflict over. But a young white kid invited me to dinner after school one day, changed my worldview of race at 11 years old.
In what
Sixth
way?
grade. He was authentic in his friendship toward me. He developed a relationship when we didn't have to. But for his extension, you know, I felt like Sidney Poitier in his house because he didn't tell his mother I was coming over. And so it's like I come into the house, I'm 11 years old, his mother comes out with dinner. And we became friends. We're still friends today.
Really?
Yes.
That's great.
Mike Schillenberg, shout out.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you've been through a lot in your life. Your partner was killed in '88. Your brother was killed. Your son had some mental disorders as an adult at 28 years old, shot a police officer, and so he was killed. 5 officers were killed in that sniper shooting. How do you overcome that?
My Christian faith. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ and his grace, his unmerited favor helped me take another breath, another step, and be able to use those experiences to console others during the crisis on July 7th.
Your son, he was bipolar,
Yes.
28 years old. How did you learn of the news that he was gone?
I was in church on Father's Day.
On Father's Day.
And I was praying. And got the call. And then at the end of service, I don't answer the phone in church. At the end of service, I answered the phone and got the news.
Wow, worst day of your life. But he
Yes.
left behind a son,
Yes.
your grandson,
Yes.
who is so much like you. You
Yes,
said
he is.
straight A student.
Straight A's,
That's
advanced
great.
placement. Just
That's great.
The good Lord can console us all.
Amen. Well, I know that you've done so much to change the Dallas community, and you were under fire for a lot of the decisions that you made. But then when the sniper attack happened, you were praised.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, I made tough decisions as a leader, and I didn't make decisions to be politically correct or to save my job. I just made the decisions I thought on principle were the right things to do to support the good men and women who did the job the right way. But I held accountable the 1 or 2% that didn't. And I believed in community policing. And so when July 7th happens, all of that comes to fruition and you're heralded. But I believe in serving the public much more than serving myself. So after 33 years and being the longest serving police chief in Dallas's history in the modern era, I decided to retire and go on to other things.
I never thought that we would see a time in our country when there would be so much just divisiveness when it comes to just supporting our law enforcement, but unfortunately we've come to that reality. I remember we were reporting for the conventions in Philadelphia, and I talked to one police officer, and he said he takes his uniform off before he leaves work because he's too scared to go out in public wearing it. How do we get to that point, and how do you encourage people to still become police officers?
Yeah, millennials don't like the profession, the way it's covered, particularly. But I would say this. I never ask people to do what I'm not willing to do. So when I was a senior in college, instead of protesting what was happening in my neighborhood, I put in an application and became part of the solution. We have to put skin in the game when we want our government to perform better, rather than just complain, which we have every right with the First Amendment, freedom of speech, but we also have to be engaged in the solution. Our mothers taught us this. You want something done right? Be willing to do it yourself. That's a good sage for all of us.
That's why you became the chief. I've always heard to become a good boss, you can't ask your employees to do something you're not willing to do
That's
too.
exactly right.
What about protests? Are they working?
In our country, you go back to the history of our country, it's never been a protest that's changed things. World War II, we had to fight. Our founding fathers, they protested, they threw tea in the Boston Harbor, but they fought. The Civil Rights generation, they served and they fought. Protest alone has never been the impetus for significant change in our country. I would encourage all those activists, name the group, get more involved in the local democracy and be the change that you are seeking. Be involved in our government in ways where you see it deficient, and then you will see the most significant change. Get involved. Put an application in.
Why do you love this country and serving so much?
It's the best democracy you will find anywhere in the world. I'm proud to be a Dallasite. I'm proud of Dallas, and I'm proud to be an American.
We're proud of you. Thank you. God bless you, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us. All right, coming up next, White House economic advisor Gary Cohn. He is here with what's on deck for President Trump's agenda, and it could mean more money in your pocket. So that's good news. And they are in the country illegally. So how are they getting free legal advice on your dime? We'll talk about it.
Pro being aware of global warming's biggest consequence. Con having to hear Al Gore talk again. Oh.
You see, water levels are at the highest level they've been in years. The water level, when the water levels rise, the water levels are, what's happening is the water levels are rising and they're reaching high levels of water.
How great was that? You can't roll out your Al Gore until recently because it's been in hiding for 10 years.
He's back.
Yep.
Hey, let's go down to Washington, D.C. right now and bring in Gary Cohn. He is the president's chief economic advisor. Gary, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so later today, after the president flies Air Force One into Cincinnati, I understand 5 minutes after he parks the plane, he's going to be speaking to the victims of Obamacare. Who are the victims of Obamacare? What does that mean?
These are families that are losing their insurance or have had their insurance premiums skyrocket because of the cost of being part of Obamacare. You know, we're going into Ohio today. I'm sure you saw the news yesterday that one of the major insurers pulled out of Ohio.
Yep.
We're going to have 18 counties in Ohio with no insurance providers. Those are the victims of Obamacare, people that really want to buy insurance but just can't because there's no providers.
So, Gary, here's the issue, and I thought it was very interesting that Senator Lindsey Graham brought this up. Hardly a right-wing firebrand. He said, Mr. President, this is not your problem. He goes, this is not your plan. It's not the Republicans' plan. Let it die. Then Democrats will come, and we're going to work on something that will actually work, because the CBO is going to trash anything that the Republicans put forward. What about that?
You know, I don't think it's the president's agenda to let it die and leave people that want to have good health insurance to be without health insurance.
Sure.
As we're looking around the country today and we see Americans working hard to take care of their families and be insured, who want to buy insurance but have no availability of product because insurers have pulled out of their counties and pulled out of their states because they just can't provide insurance because the financial aspects of it don't work, because people can sign up for insurance the day they get sick. That's not the way insurance works. You buy insurance and you pay the premiums, and when you need it, you get your costs covered. The way Obamacare works is you don't buy insurance until you need it, and then you pay for the insurance.
That's the conundrum.
That's right. All right. Well, the president is slashing all the red tape at historic levels, we're being told, reducing new regulations to a tiny fraction of the burden imposed by previous administrations. What is he doing? Because we've been told in order to even build a road, you have to go through so many different regulations. By the time you get it approved, years have passed and companies have already gone out of business that put in their bids.
Yeah. So one of our big agenda items on infrastructure, and as you know, this is Infrastructure Week. We started by announcing air traffic control reform on Monday. We're going to Ohio today to talk about inland waterways. Tomorrow we've got governors and mayors, bipartisan governors and mayors here. On Friday we're going to the Department of Transportation to talk about roads, bridges, and rails. But one of the other objectives we have is the approval process. Right now it takes about 10 years to get any infrastructure project approved in the United States. We're going from a 10 to 2 philosophy. We want to cut the time frame from 10-year approval process to 2 years, and we want the agencies, the government agencies that have to go through their process, to work with each other and get approval processes as timely as possible. If we can't approve something, let's just turn it down and have the money and the capital move to something that can get done. The time delay really is costly in this whole process. American citizens deserve something better.
And speaking of time delay, I know one of your main priorities is tax reform, and that's what the president would like to see. And we've heard, you know, we're going to get health care done, then we're going to get tax reform done. We'll do them early summer, late summer, fall. Now people are talking about, you know what, there's a possibility tax reform not going to happen this year. I know the president met with top Republicans yesterday. Are you guys all on the same page? Because it seems like the president and you want to go, but it seems like the Republicans in Congress, not so fast.
Yeah. So yesterday was actually a very good day for us on tax reform. As you said, the president had Republican leadership into the White House, and then later in the day, Secretary Mnuchin and myself met with both House leadership, the Speaker, and